You're listening to the Dyslexia and Me podcast, and I'm your host, Laura Gowers, a global dyslexia assessor, coach and strategist, and I'm a former Senko with over 23 years experience in education. So today I'm joined by Angie Mays. Angie was diagnosed with dyslexia as an adult while studying at university. After years of feeling disorganised, overwhelmed and wondering why everyday tasks seemed harder than they should be, understanding her dyslexia changed everything. It helped her move from exhaustion and burnout to calm, clarity and self-kindness. Angie is now a mindset and disability work coach, supporting neurodivergent individuals and exhausted women in business through her You First method. Hello, Angie, and welcome to the podcast today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So you were diagnosed with dyslexia as an adult when you were at university. What was the moment when things suddenly started to make sense to you?
Well, I went to university and you get like these really massive essays and I was like, I can't read these. People were reading them and they just seemed they're so much smarter than me. And I just felt I wasn't good enough to be there. And they were reading them and they were able to, say what they were about, like dissect them and, talk about it so openly. And I was like, how can I not read this and break it down and be able to understand it? And as I was trying to read, like, just say one paragraph, there would be, so many different words in that one sentence, maybe 5 in one sentence, that I wouldn't understand the meaning. So it was almost like it was a foreign language. It was hard to read the text and understand it when you couldn't read the words. So I was thinking, why can't I read the words? Why don't I know these words? Why don't they make sense to me? It was like reading a foreign language. So I had to come into a little small group with the tutor and he would take us outside. It was almost like being at school and he would help us understand it. I was thinking, wow, this is just unreal. Like it shouldn't be this hard because everyone else is finding it so easy. So looking up the words and trying to get the meaning of them wasn't really helping. So I was understanding that I was different, but I didn't kind of click it all together at first. But then when they sent me for the test, it was so clear that it was like, wow, it never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, and I think some people, if they're doing their GCSEs, they haven't been diagnosed with dyslexia, and then they jump to A-levels, they can find that jump a little bit tricky. And then obviously, like you say, that jump from A-levels to degree level, that's just another level of reading that you have to do, and long passages. And when you're writing your essays, you've got to do all of your research of the previous studies. So there is a lot more to it. And it's quite common for people who've compensated quite well when they're at school to then suddenly have all of those compensatory strategies unravel as they go away to university. So what was school life like for you with undiagnosed dyslexia?
I don't know really, because if I'm honest, I actually didn't spend much time in my teenage years at school. I found a job at 13 and I was phoned up and asked if I wanted to go to work instead. So as a teenager, I thought I'd rather go to work, and I wasn't really interested in school. To me, my life was my friends, partying. It wasn't until I was an adult and I knew I was having my child that I thought, this is the time I want to go back and do my GCSEs. I only turned up for one of my maths and I don't think I really did any others. So it it wasn't really on my mind to do well at school, or whether it was because I was struggling. I just wasn't interested, to be honest.
And you've previously spoken in conversations about disorganisation, poor sense of direction and overwhelm. How did those specific challenges show up in your daily life before you had that diagnosis? And I guess they still show up now.
Yeah, I think as you go on, when you find out, it's almost like getting a passport, but you've never been on holiday. So you find out and you're not experiencing the other things. You just think it's basic reading. And, if the words don't look how they sound, then you can't read them. So it was big learning really as I went on, because actually, although I knew I was dyslexic, I didn't know what dyslexic was in the umbrella term of everything, of how it was affecting me. So I didn't know it was my disorganization. I struggled at uni because everybody had everything put away neatly in folders. Mine was just in a big bag. So my mind was all messy, my organization was all messy, but I still didn't pinpoint that to being dyslexic. Nobody said, oh, it's your organization skills, you need to learn this. It's as I've got further on in life and I've done courses around dyslexic for my work, working with my part-time job, that I've realized I've got this far in life not knowing that all the things that I do is because of dyslexic, and one of them obviously was a disorganization. I've got tons of notebooks, I've got tons of bags of paperwork. The other day I had to try and find my MOT and I couldn't find it because I don't organize things properly, and it's been really overwhelming and challenging. But learning that about myself, I'm now trying to do things differently, and I say to myself, that's okay that I can't do it that way. Whereas before, I'd be like, oh, why is everyone else organized? Why can't I do it? Why am I like this? And I put myself down so much thinking it was a me problem, and not knowing that that is what dyslexic causes. I'm now able to be kind to myself and put myself first and realize everybody in my household knows how I work, and I say that's my dyslexic. I'm trying my best. But if you don't know this and you don't have the awareness, you just don't feel like you're good enough. So it's held me back in so many ways. Like I learned that learning to drive, that's affected, but I didn't know that till 20 years after learning to drive. And I just thought, it took me 3 times to learn to drive. It took me how many times to learn my theory test? I just thought, why am I thick? Why am I not good enough?
So that whole diagnosis played a pivotal role. Do you feel as though if you didn't have the diagnosis, you might self-identify? So do you think there's benefit of having a diagnosis for you?
100%. I think the benefit was good to have that, but also accepting that and then going on to further educate myself, because I don't think people know how much is actually involved. And for instance, I thought I had bad sense of direction, and I'll go to the same hairdresser, and I've been going to her, I reckon, for 3 years, and I still always message her and ask her what number her house is. And it's crazy because to people, they'll be like, how do you not know this? But to me, it could be any of the 3 houses. It's that paper gives you the passport, but to go and book the flights and go on the holidays, that step further, it's about learning about it and learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Everybody's different, like with any different neuro condition. What affects one person is going to affect a different person. So the piece of paper definitely gives you that passport, but you need to understand yourself better. And when you do, you're more compassionate to yourself, you're kinder, you're able to deal with life better. And if you are in a job where you're expected to do something and, you feel like you're not doing as well as others, you can speak to your boss, you can explain this, and you can, get those reasonable adjustments and manage your life a lot more effectively. So I think it's definitely opens the door to it, but you've also got to help yourself understand it more, because we're all different. And the more you understand yourself, the happier you will be.
I hear from lots of people that when they get that diagnosis, they really feel as though they can advocate for themselves better. So whether that's as an adult, you can advocate for yourself, or as a parent, when you know that your child has dyslexia, then you can go approach things differently when you go into school. And what you raised there about how it changed how you spoke to yourself and given yourself that compassion.
Yeah.
I think that is so important for adults. And there is still this misconception around dyslexia and the fact that some people would think it is just about reading or writing or being unable to spell. But like you said, with the direction, there's so much to it. And lots of people have real trouble with direction. If somebody says to you, go down this road, turn left, then turn right, then the next road left, you're just completely lost.
No, instructions, I don't like them. I'm laughing because I'm like, no, I don't like instructions.
And
But I think the compassionate side of it, we spend so much time learning to drive, learning to bake a cake and all these other things. But who actually spends that time learning to get to know yourself, how you work, and working out strategies so that you can be more effective in your everyday life? And that is something that's really important with things like dyslexic, that you need to try and test things and find the right way for you, because you are different, you learn differently, you think differently, and that's okay. But if you're trying to push against, it's not going to work. So learn that way that's good for you, and then you're happier. Things will flow with ease, and you're not continuously, it's like pushing yourself uphill. You're being kinder to yourself. And that's what we need. We need that compassion, because otherwise we're trying to fit in a box that we don't fit in.
that's exactly right, isn't it? And I think you have previously had experiences of exhaustion and burnout, haven't you,
Yeah.
from constantly pushing through. So what were those warning signs that you wished you'd listened to sooner with that?
With the exhaustion and the burnout and the overwhelm, I think that is a lot to do with the way I work, and I was pushing through. You think I'm in a job. I was in a very unhealthy job where I was working, say 10-hour shifts 6 days a week. So I saw that as norm because everyone around me worked hard. People say to me, you work hard. And I was, wore that as a badge of honor, which I hate the word work hard now, but I was pushing through all the time. So say I was tired, I'd push through. I'd be in a busy catering business. I would skip lunch and then I'd eat a load of chocolate bars to keep me going. I would feel tired, depressed. I wouldn't even have the energy to have feelings of joy. Yeah, and I became very depressed. The main thing is just to listen to your body, because it's trying to warn us. I know if I'm on my computer for, say, an hour, that if my head starts getting fuzzy, it's because there's too many tabs open in my head. And like your computer, you close them all down. I'd go and stand outside for a 5-minute break, or I would just switch off for half an hour and then go back. But in a job where I've had to, say, be behind a computer all day, I've just continue to do it. And I can say now I've broke down in every job. Going to the CEO's office, crying your eyes out, feeling like a failure. I wish I knew back then how to learn to work with my body, not push through, and give myself those regular breaks I needed when I felt it in my body in any way. And it normally comes up as a bit of anxiety, and then I'll push through, and the anxiety is so bad that I can't even go home and sit down and be calm. So, but I didn't realize that, that was happening to me. I didn't know dyslexic made you so overwhelmed if you were trying to push through. There's just so many key moments that it's like, wow, I was just not listening to anything my body was telling me. And those alarm bells, those warning signs, ignoring them just made me very bad mentally, physically, and to the point that, I fell down the stairs, exhausted, been off work for 6 weeks. I've twisted my ankle. I think it's all signs that if you don't listen to your body, the universe has to present you with something so that you do, because it's too much. And I've also battled with mental health for 25 years. So now that I do listen to my body, I give myself what I need. I've been able to come off my antidepressants, and I don't even know how many times I've been on and off them in my life.
Because dyslexia can cause so much exhaustion, can't it? You're
Yeah.
having to do everything, you're having to spend longer doing everything. The cognitive load of reading lots of information, the time it takes you, you might have to, some people will take work home with them because they haven't finished what they wanted to get done during the day. And
Yeah.
if you keep doing that, it just has an impact and will create this overwhelm, won't it? And I think then once you get into that circle, it's really difficult to get out of that. So you recently created a You First method. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I would say it's come from being exhausted, working 16 years in the same job. I thought that was how people lived. I then had 2 or 3 jobs, and I never listened to what I needed. I felt like I was a victim of my own life. This is all happening to me. I'm exhausted. I'm depressed. This is who I am. And I wasn't really like fully awake, or I didn't realize that actually by putting yourself first, that's where the power comes from. So when I did start loving myself, building myself up after my last burnout, it was like I was slowly getting to know myself. I had to repair myself then, because when you're in that state, eating healthy and sleeping is not enough. You've been in fight and flight mode for so long that doesn't work. You've actually got to listen to your body and give yourself what it needs. I started eating at regular times, drinking at regular times, having breaks, and really getting to know myself. And when I actually got through that burnout, I realized that actually I'm not designed to push through, work, ignore my own needs. And what was a big key factor of it as well was being a mum. I always thought, right, if I always put my daughter first, I'm a successful mum. But actually, I was showing her that my needs didn't matter. I was showing her that to pay the bills and everything, I was burning out and I was working too much. But me having 2 jobs and working too much was making me not go shopping and get the food. It was making me have more takeaways. It was making me spend more time in my room in bed afterward. So it was taking away all the fact that I wasn't present with my family. And I realized that actually when I did start putting myself first, I was showing her that actually I mattered too, that my needs matter, and that actually rather than working and being this good worker that society wants you to be, that putting your needs first is where the power is. And then I had my own sister say to me that she thought I was a hypochondriac because I was always poorly, and this really upset me. And then when I started giving myself all that time, love and support that I needed, I wasn't ill for the whole year. And when I'm looking at all these things and they're making sense to me, it's because I'm working with myself again now. I'm not pushing through. I'm listening to what I need. There's so many key pivotal moments, but when you actually do start putting yourself first, you see that you've got better relationships with yourself, you've got better relationships with your family, you're calmer, you sleep better, you work better. Now I'm like, I know I'm too tired after traveling all day around. I'm going to do that hour's paperwork tomorrow, and that's okay. So it's just changed my whole life really, because yes, I've burnt out in every job, but why? Because what I was doing wasn't right for me. So I'm able to assess things for my needs now. So my You First method has come from basically messing up everything I've ever done and learning from it. But it's come from never considering myself, not feeling good enough, not having self-love, and building all that back up and realizing actually our power is within. You can't be successful in business or life or family or any of these things without giving to yourself first. I'm not going to be one of those people that are going to blame my job anymore, because I can't have had those issues in every job I went to. So it giving myself what I need has given me back me. I no longer experience depression and anxiety. I was people pleasing and doing all these things and not listening to my own needs. And actually, we are the center of everything. You can't live your life through other people or through their validation or doing what they think's best for you. You have to know what's best for yourself.
I can see from you talking so passionately about this that you've really lived by the method that you've created, and it comes through in your words and your phrases. What patterns do you see most often in women who are late diagnosed, or if they self-identify as dyslexic?
I would say it's more about they are doing too much work, business. They're trying to do too much to achieve what they want to do. They're so exhausted and overwhelmed that they're not doing it from ease energy. They're doing it from a forceful energy. So everything in their life is then having that impact on their home, and they're just not coping. They're waking up exhausted. They're not giving themselves any compassion. Their mindset is totally, they're their own worst enemy. They're almost bullying themselves with their words, and they're seeing that their work life is overtaking them. So the way I work with them is to get them to think differently so they live differently. So people think with dyslexic, they need more strategies, they need more systems, they need more this, that, and the other. But actually, most of the time, they're just not even looking after their basic needs so that they can thrive. So when they think differently about things, they realize actually, I'm not working with myself, I'm working against myself, and that For instance, a lady's been able to pull back more with her business, and she's been able to look at where her invisible energy drainers are. Like, should be trying to doing some work before bed. And I'm like, but you doing that work before bed is getting you stressed, overwhelmed, and then you're not able to sleep. Your heightened emotions with anxiety and things, we have that to keep ourselves safe as a tiger's running after us in the wild. Like, imagine then going to bed because you've caused all that anxiety for yourself, lying down, and there's a tiger, your body thinks a tiger's running after you. How are you going to be able to sleep with ease? So it's about pulling back and looking at the different areas, because people, like I used to do it myself, they think, right, I've got to look after the kids, go to work, do the housework. Nothing is ever going to change. And that's their mindset. I'm always going to be too busy. I'm always going to be exhausted. I'm always going to feel like this. But actually, it's looking at the areas and what you're doing. So I've given them breathing activities that calm their nervous system. So when they do have situations that are out of their control, they're calmer to deal with it. It's just about recognizing what works for you and not trying to push against it all the time. It will overwhelm you. It will exhaust you. It will make you poorly because you're trying to, I hate this saying, pour from an empty cup. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? But it is true. You wouldn't get in the car and start the car with no petrol in, would you? You just wouldn't do it. Like, it's going to bugger the engine up. That's what we're doing to ourselves. We get ill because we've got no petrol in our system, and we're trying to make our system go with nothing to give. That energy, that petrol is not there. So, work with your energy. Listen to your body.
And I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that, with this conversation that we've had today. And it's been really fantastic having you on here. So finally, could you please tell listeners how they can connect with you?
Well, I do have a free group, Exhausted to Empowered, on Facebook, which I absolutely love because I have a group expert every week that's different. They have different skills. So it could be a menopause coach, could be like a dyslexic coach. So it's all about looking at all the different ways we are exhausted. So I have that on there, which is a free group, and there's trainings in there every week. I'm on Facebook as Angie Mays, and I post, as you know, about exhaustion and the You First method all the time. Because I just want women just to wake up and know that actually exhaustion isn't normal. I kept living through that, just thinking that that was a normal way of life. And you might hear the odd newborn parent say, I'm exhausted, which is fair enough. That is an exhausted stage of life, but it shouldn't be that we're exhausted all the time, that we're waking up dreading our day at work because we're too tired. I used to go to work crying, walk into work crying, wipe the tears away and go and work. I just like to spread the message that you first is so important, because if we don't do that, then we're not going to find that spark. We're going to be so disconnected with ourselves. So just come and give me a follow, and no pressure. I don't reach out to people and say, do you want my coach? And I barely do it, because the people that are on my page, I know when they're ready because they come to me. It's a free space, and I just like women to stand up for themselves, really, and know I deserve more.
Thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll put all of the links in the show notes so that people can connect with you.
Lovely. Right. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your words. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in to today's episode. Please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast, and I'll see you all next time.